I get a lot of questions about the swing out tire carrier and fold down table setup that I have in the back. And I had a ton of questions before I built this. So I thought it'd be fun to go over the design, how I made it, what materials I used, and hopefully it'll help you guys if you're trying to build one yourself, or maybe just get some inspo. So let's take a look. Main reason I wanted to do a rear tire swing out was to be able to put a full-size 33-inch spare on the truck and have it accessible at any time. So if I'm off on the trail and you get stuck, and for some reason you get stuck and it's hard to, you can't access under the truck, that's a major bummer. You're gonna have to jack the truck up or tow it or whatnot. So having it on the back, super helpful. The other thing is I wanted to add the ability to do a drop-down table for when I'm camping. Adds a lot of usable space and just really handy. So this is something I was really looking forward to, and now I want to show you some of the design elements that I wanted when I was looking for this and trying to design it myself. So a couple of things I try and keep in mind whenever I'm making something on the truck. I like stuff to look understated. I like it to try and fit nice and slim and not just kind of make it try and look almost as if it could have been designed from the factory. So I tried to place the tire as close as possible to the back of the truck to eliminate any extra stress and leverage it would have on the hinge when it's out here. It's also a pretty big tire for the size of these trucks, so having it stick up really high or stick out farther kind of just looks too big on the truck in my opinion. So I mocked this up. I built this whole thing out of wood first just so I could kind of get the idea how big it was going to be. I used Photoshop and photoshopped a tire on the back and tried to move it around. Another part of it was I wanted this tire to fall before the tail light, so I wasn't blocking the tail light at all. So if you see over here, it just misses the tail light, which I think is nice. It's also not as high as some of the other high clearance ones. I don't plan on taking this truck on incredibly difficult trails. I mean, I'll definitely try and take it on difficult trails, but the breakover angle for the back meets this bumper, so unless I'm doing like a straight up rock ledge, I shouldn't hit this for the trails that I'm doing. So that's why it's placed right there and kind of angled back. I'm really happy with how that turned out. Same thing with this side. When I was doing the table, I wanted the table to come full width, but also fall before the tail light, so you're not blocking the tail light. As well as the height. When you look out the driver at the rear view mirror, you actually still have pretty good visibility because you're not coming over the tailgate, and like I said, you've still got some view here. So yeah, those were kind of some of the things I was trying to keep in mind when I was designing this. The other part would be the latch. This is another really important part of any tire carrier. You want this to be as strong as possible, and I tried to do a design that would support all the weight of the tire when it's resting. So unless the thing is open, there should be no tension on the bearing, and this really helps. So this is like a fully captured latch right here. This isn't closed up yet. I plan to put something in there, but this is a piece of tubing. This is the same tubing here, 2 by 3 inch tubing stacked up here, and I cut this shape out and it captures this guy, and there's a little bit of a rise in it so that it takes the weight off the bearing. So sitting like this, there's no stress on that, on the hinge back there. So when you're wheeling, going over bumps and doing roads and stuff, you know it's not bouncing around or putting undue stress on the bearing. So yeah, those are just a couple of the kind of design elements I wanted to include in it. So now I'm going to show you kind of how I cut it out, and we'll go on from there. Now let's talk about the materials I used and kind of the measurements and how I laid it out. So I'll open it up here. Okay, so super simple. If you're going to build one of these, don't be intimidated. If you just got a welder, this is a super simple project. If you have a buddy who has a welder, let him know it's going to be pretty simple. And even if you're gonna have a shop weld it, I would encourage you to cut everything yourself, bring the pieces to them and show them like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And they shouldn't charge you much to just MIG weld that together. So I used 2 by 3 inch square tubing with a 1/8 inch wall thickness. So plenty strong. I like the aspect of this tubing, aspect ratio of this tubing more than like the standard 2 by 2. At least on my truck, I feel like it just looks a little more purposeful. But yeah, you basically just got 3 pieces. You got one long piece here. I did a single post. Again, that's kind of the advantage of using a heavier material like a 2 by 3, is you don't need a bunch of gussets and stuff. So got your long post, got your post to hold the tire, one support here, and then this guy's just sticking off the back, holding the tire. And this is a pre-cut plate from a steel supply store. It's a 6 by 6 1/4 inch plate. So just bought that, put it on here, threw the wheel on, used a marker, drilled 2 holes, and you're good to go. I do encourage you, if you're going to build one, once you've got the design for your truck, build it out of wood, do the cuts out of wood, and you'll be able to get those tolerances a lot closer and stuff. Because once you cut it in metal, it's a little bit harder to redo. So yeah, those are the pieces I've used for the main part. And then I'd say the other really important part of any swing out build is going to be your hinge, whatever you use to move the whole swing arm. This is the 4X Innovation swing out kit, and really like it, super happy with it. Has needle bearings, and it's also double shear. So what that means is, instead of having a spindle coming up and your only point of structure for it is right at the base, sometimes you'll see people's have snapped off, especially if they have bigger tires. This basically clamps both sides of it, so it can't try and bend off and break. So lots of peace of mind, super sturdy, barely any movement at all, especially not when closed, and couldn't be more happy with that. So check those guys out, 4X Innovations. They're a small company on the East Coast, and I think they make the best hinge for a swing out on the market. That thing's about 120 bucks, so definitely check them out. All right, let's talk about the table. So this is, like I said, one of the main reasons I wanted to do the whole swing out was to be able to have this space when I'm camping. It's been super useful. I love having this. Just makes camping a lot easier. Got that extra space. I use the stove on here and whatnot. I'll show you it all set up in a second, but this is super simple to build. This is a piece of 3/4 inch plywood. I had this lying around from the old bed slide that I had, so I just used that. The metal skin on top, you could use anything you can find, a real thin piece of stainless if you want to buy it, or if you can find it maybe like a fridge, one of those fancy stainless fridges on the side of the road, slice a piece out of that. I actually sliced a piece out of the back of a filing cabinet that I found for free, and it sounds funny, it felt funny, it actually works great. I've had it out on a bunch of trips, and it's just nice to have a surface that's not absorbing the water if you're cooking on it, blah blah blah. So yeah, metal skin is the way to go on top of some plywood, keeps it light, plenty strong, and then it's just edged with angle aluminum, which I got at the hardware store for like 14 bucks, I think. So very cheap, very simple, but works awesome. So if you have a swing out, I definitely recommend adding a drop down table. The hinges I used were just standard hinges from the hardware store. They were weldable, mild steel hinges, and I oriented them so that they naturally lock out at 90 degrees. So even without this table on there, this hinge doesn't want to open any more than that. And then to help support it, I cut a piece of steel plate and put it on there. So when this closes, the idea is this plate hits here as well. And since it is wood, these bolts are also squishing this piece of plate here like a big sandwich. So it's not wanting to rip out through the wood like a little hole. Yeah, so that's the basics of the swing out. Super rad little Toyota decal from my buddy Gun Runner on Instagram. He sells these. That actually, as funny as it sounds, a sticker, I really love it. I feel like it kind of brought the whole build together. Before I had this on the back, it was located basically right where the original badge is. I don't know. It's the little details that kind of bring it together, and I really like that. So yeah, that's the swing fold down table. And now I'll show you kind of how I use it with all the camping stuff. Here's a quick example of how I use the table when I'm out camping. I keep all my camping and kitchen related stuff for camping in one of these Pelican cases. This is a Pelican 1600. Happened to get these off Craigslist, all 4 of them at a screaming deal for $40 a piece. But here's a cool little tip I'm gonna let you in on. If you want to use one of these, a Coleman stove fits perfectly in here. So I like to keep everything I need to spend a couple days out with my son, and usually that's just pancakes, coffee, hot chocolate, and maybe some little cup of noodles or whatnot. But everything fits in here really well, and a Coleman stove will fit into one of these 1600 cases like absolutely perfectly. So this guy goes out here. I can keep the gas in there as well. I've got silverware, a bunch of other cooking stuff. I keep the cutting boards, a bunch of different knives. These lid organizers are super nice. You can keep tea and coffee, and I plan to kind of build it out with spices and whatnot. But you can see just how useful having one of these tables is. It's a perfect spot for something like this. You know, you can set your whole thing up. This can still rest on here. You've got food prep space. In the past, my little son, he's 4, sits on the tailgate and uses this as a table, or if it's in the way, I usually just put it under here. Keep everything nice and clean and organized. So that's one of the best uses for the table that I've had, and super stoked to have it on the back of the truck. So yeah, that's the basic little camp setup. That's the tire carrier for you. If you guys have more questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll try and get back to you. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. I also have Instagram, where I've got a lot of these different things I've done to the truck with some pretty detailed posts on there too. So if you want to head over to my Instagram, it's Overland Under Budget on Instagram. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a good day.